Clangity clang clang clangity clang clang. Welcome back, everyone. It is another week of Improv Basics with me, Jeremy. Welcome to my channel. I'll go ahead and put all the chat commands, all that stuff right now. I hope everyone's doing well. Today we are going to be doing a class on Spacework. And I hope that you guys are ready to learn a thing or two. Hopefully, I hope by the end of this, maybe. But let me go ahead and set everything up really quickly. Sorry for the delay. So I'm gonna switch slides for you guys real quick. All right, I think we are in my presentation slide now. So thank you guys so much for your patience. So let me go ahead and take this off real quick. If I can find it. I got such bad eyes right now. Okay, so yeah, like I said, my name is Jeremy, and we're going to be doing another Improv Basics today. And what that means is I'm going to go ahead and put this sound real quick.
We the best! Improv Basics with Jerami and Arthur. Another one!
Sorry for the cheesiness, but that is my nature. But today I'm going to go ahead and have a special guest. So we have an and that special guest is my friend Arthur, fellow improviser, and I'm bringing him in right now. Arthur, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
How did you hear my intro for the Improv Basics?
So unintentionally, I unmuted Twitch at that exact moment, and I got to hear your DJ Khaled. I got to hear it.
It's a nice DJ Khaled, right?
Yeah.
I gave him a couple of stacks for that one.
We the best.
Another one. Arthur is.
They didn't want me to get an anthem, so I got another anthem.
So I got another
who
one.
Want him?
His wife is just like, shut up.
Who was after him? Yeah, who was after him?
I haven't seen the videos personally, but I know that his wife is posting a bunch of like workout videos. And he's like, hell yeah, get it. And she's like, shut up. She's just so pissed off.
She yells at him in that one because he's like trying to hype her up, but in a very DJ Khaled way. And it's like he's doing it for himself in the video, and she's just like, dude, just let me work out right now. Like,
yeah,
why are you doing this?
I can imagine that'd be very annoying to permanently live with. Do you think the first person that he produced a song for, he did that and they're like, yo, this shit bops, this goes. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, that same person is actually in an insane asylum right now.
Just all padded walls for all four of them. Well, welcome Arthur. If you guys in the chat don't know, he is a fellow improviser. He's on a squad that I am a part of as well, called Imaginary Circumstances. And
never heard of him.
Never heard of him. He went to AMDA. We won't go into the full name of that. And he also took some classes at Second City. Anywhere else you've taken classes at?
No, I just did Second City and got into their little conservatory and had some fun over there.
Okay, cool. Well, I brought him in on this week because he is one of the masters at this technique, far better than I am, very specific. And we are talking about Spacework today. I'm not trying to over amp you up, Arthur, so don't get nervous, please.
No, it's done. It's been done.
It's done. So Spacework, for people that might not know, is also known as object work. Some people might call it object work. So when referring to spacework, it is directly referencing the space between your hands. So everything that is between these two hands or just one solo hand, that's what we're talking about. Or as definition given by Improv Cincinnati, manipulating negative space to create imaginary props, costumes, and set pieces that help create the world the scenes inhabit. I thought that was pretty. That's a very official definition, right? Am I crazy?
Just that opening few words of manipulating negative space.
I know.
To create imaginary props. The way whoever had the vocabulary to put that beginning sentence together it came in hot.
It came in hot. They had a nice little writer's room right there. Or for just to dumb it down for everyone, just so they kind of understand it. It's kind of like when you see mimes. You know how mimes always are using object work and creating objects out of thin air. That's why I did this little Martin Freeman. I think it's Martin Freeman right here. I don't know if you can see the. I thought that Arthur, you would like this mime right here because I feel like you constantly are pulling out a pack of cigarettes.
I am like deep down a like 3-pack a day smoker via object work. Like I don't smoke cigarettes in real life. I mean, maybe occasionally, but I smoke like a chimney when I'm doing improv. It doesn't matter what. I could be a 10-year-old character, and I'm like,
okay, here we go. And I've always, that was like, I think I remember seeing the first time, it might have been you to do cigarettes or something like that, but just the specificity behind it, I was like, wow, this person really knows cigarettes. They do, you know, we do the tap to pack it in, we open it, we slide it out a little inch by inch because it doesn't fully come out right away, right? It's not like a nice little pluck out and pull.
You really got to get them out of there.
So I've always been very impressed by that. I think I've tried replicating it a couple times. I'm not as good, but you know, I think I get the basics of it. Yeah, let's go to the
You
next
should
one.
just smoke a real pack of cigarettes.
That's how you learn?
That's how you...
I'll think about it. It's all about the work for me. It's all about the work. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the importance of space work. Arthur, did you have anything that you, off the dome, what you think of importance of space work?
I would rather jump in after I see
what. So you don't repeat anything that's been said.
And not just that, but I feel like one, it'll give me things to kind of go in on individual items. But then also like
bet
I don't want to repeat anything.
Bet. All right, so we'll see. So some of the importance of space work right here. I put keeping active. It's like one of the first things for me. So leading a scene with space work can not only indicate like an improviser's idea, but also keep a scene from becoming talking heads. And I know what talking heads is. Arthur knows what talking heads is. But Arthur, would you like to explain it to the audience that has no idea?
Talking heads it's straightforward in that it is literally that. If you are just characters or people just talking, it takes away from the value of the scene. Something has to matter. There has to be some sort of importance. And also, people in real life are always actively doing something. Mm-hmm. If you really think about it or notice, like when you're interacting with somebody, a lot of times it's got value. There is something you're doing. I mean, whether it's me literally constantly drinking this Red Bull that I have right here while we're doing this. Sometimes people are holding their keys. But also when it comes to a scene, you're trying to find activity in growth. You're going to literally be doing things. Also, you have an audience watching you.
Yeah.
So it is important to give depth to what you're doing. And a lot of times, simply having something to do will help ground you in a reality, whether it's the place that you're in, whether it's how you're feeling, or whether it's just who that character is. If you know that you've been established as a crazy manic individual and you are sitting there brushing and cleaning pieces of a gun, that gives some depth in life to what's happening, other than you just having to say, I'm a crazy manic dude and I love guns.
I just love it. Yeah. Building a scene inside all the way out, right? Just like there's so much stuff on an empty stage. There's so many things that need to be created on an empty stage. Because, I mean, if you do any shows, and some people that might be watching us do shows, you know that you go on stage with maybe about 2 chairs. And 2 Chainz would say that's true. You know, he would also say that's true. So like creating a world like we're talking about, we basically kind of covered it right there. How everything is completely made up because you don't get props, you don't get costumes, you don't get anything at your disposal. So you have to go out there and just create it from thin air, right? And like we said, talking heads, 2 people just standing with their arms by their side is not creating a believable world. I put this one, it's a great initiation. An initiation is just the top of the scene, like the first line of a scene that helps indicate to your partner what you're kind of thinking, or establishes a who, a what, or where which we've talked about in previous classes. And like I put the first sentence, like, are you afraid to start a scene verbally? Like you have a half idea. And there's been so many times where words fall short for me, you know what I mean? Where I start to overthink something, like what's funny? How do I establish?
Are you talking about the first time you asked me out?
Yeah, I overthought it, and I hired way too many planes to do letters in the sky. I was like, just wait for it. I told him to write a whole paragraph instead of one word, and
we were indoors, by the way, so
we were
I couldn't
indoors.
even see the airplane.
By the time he got to the end of the first sentence, the first half of the sentence was already dissipated. He couldn't read it all. So like there's been many times where I get way too in my head, and I think that's a lot of people that are starting improv, but also a lot of people that are veterans in improv. We're getting in our head.
It can become a nervous habit, so it kind of ends up tying all three of these together. I feel like there's a misconception that not having things like costumes and props and physical sets is a hindrance, when in reality it is. If you embrace it, it is the most freeing thing, because that means you can be anywhere with any object, doing anything you want. And the reality is, if you can become comfortable with that, then you can really take the reins and have control over the scene. And a lot of times, the words are absolutely unnecessary. And even with initiating a scene, you can create a world without even speaking. You can literally do all of these things without saying anything if you are just comfortable with your space work. You could establish to the audience where you're at, what you're doing, who you are, in a matter of a minute, just handling objects in your space the proper way. And it helps you get rid of what feels like a crutch. A lot of times the words that we're using start to become a crutch and feel like a crutch and become almost like a nervous habit instead of intention.
Oh, for sure. And I think to continue what we're already talking about, like sometimes the biggest thing for performances is that you need to have energy, right? Not like you necessarily, but the show needs to have some sort of energy behind it, right? We don't want people to feel, the audience or the improvisers to feel like there's a lull. And all those things, when we get in our head, we start to have a lull because we're like, oh, we can't get on stage because I don't have anything. Well, if you have established space work, even if you know one piece of space work, I don't care what it is, you're like, I know how to do this one thing really well. Or even like kind of mediocrely. You can go on stage and start to do that with no idea in mind. You're like, and I'm digging a hole, and I'm digging a hole, and I'm still digging a hole. I have no idea what I'm digging a hole for, but man, am I digging a hole. You're saying that all in your head. And that person,
beautiful thing. That's a gift in a lot of cases. If you have a lot of trust in your partners on stage, and you go up there with absolutely nothing, and you know that your version of a person trying to hula hoop looks nothing like a person trying to hula hoop, but your partners are going to take care of you. You can go out there and do your awful hula hooping routine, and your partner is going to come out and they're going to label it whatever they want, with absolute conviction. And whether they come out and they go, they don't even know that you're trying to do a hula hoop. They can come out and say, oh, I'm happy that you've taken up stripper pole dancing, and I support this. They literally just gave you a gift. It's not that you came out thinking you were going to make a whole scene about hula hooping. You just came out thinking that's what you were doing for Spacework, and they didn't see it. They saw you stripper dancing, and them just labeling it just created a scene right there. Now you have a jumping point. So even when you second guess your own Spacework, when you second guess what you're doing as an initiation, it doesn't have to be what you thought it was going to be. Somebody else can label it different, and you get to go from there. And even that's more fun. That's an unintentional gift. Yeah,
it seems like a crazy thing to go out there and literally have nothing, and it's so fearful of it. And not only to have nothing, but to have your idea be labeled something else. Sometimes, like at first, it can be jarring when you're first starting out, for sure. But then you learn to just go with it, and it frees you up, because literally anything can be perceived a certain way by one of your improvisers or the audience members, and it kind of just makes you feel a little bit free.
I never know what Jeremy's doing.
Yeah, never. Have no idea what the guy's doing. More meatloaf, ma. But I mean, there's like Arthur was saying, there could be a lot of scenes that are just non-verbal, and the way you get comfortable with that is by being comfortable just in a space without any sound, anything, and just trusting that you guys are going somewhere, right? Like I did a scene with our favorite Tom Green, and not that Tom Green, but a much better Tom Green in my opinion, and Sean Michael Boozer, and it wasn't necessarily space work. We were doing physicality, right? There were 2 chairs, there were 3 of us, and 2 chairs, and we all tried sitting in a chair at once. But we were so hesitant, like, oh, no, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. And by the time one of us convinced the other person to go ahead, this was all nonverbal. We're just giving nods. So by the time we got comfortable where it's like you're going back and forth, who's going to go through the door first? And then you're like, okay, I'm going to go through the door. And you both go at the same time. You're like, okay, no, you go. We did that for probably like 45 seconds. And then finally when 2 people got to sit down, I pulled out a little book and I was like, okay, so the specials today. So it just turned out that's what the scene was. And it was all non-verbal communication and just kind of like a feeling behind it. I forget what's the, oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. So I'll go ahead and go to this exercise real quick, which is loosely based on what we were kind of talking about. And it's from the UCB Improvisational Manual. And it's going beyond what Spacework is. It's more implementing like Spacework, how you are physically, like your state of being and just your location. So it's real fun. It's called Character of Space. I'm literally going to just read this verbatim. And this just kind of shows you how you could go ahead and initiate a scene and further a scene by yes-anding with just physicality, right? So it says, one improviser will, in silence, make a choice that establishes one of the following aspects of the character of space: activity, which could be playing pool, fishing, stretching, etc., location, an automobile, prison cell, supermarket, or environmental condition, like zero gravity, it's hot or cold, bright lights, etc. A second improviser will jump. A second improviser. This is why a lot of the time in class, even when there's people, like I've done these on here by myself, and even still my mind goes away. But as soon as someone does a bit outside of it, like my students, they say something funny, I'm like, and I'm in it now. Like I'm in the bit. What was I talking about? So a second improviser will join the scene and non-verbally agree with the choice that has been made. So it's just like a 2-line scene, but with no words, right? So the first example, they're doing an activity. So the player 1 steps out into the scene and begins folding laundry, right? Using Spacework to just fold laundry. And player 2 comes into the scene and joins in by putting dirty laundry into a washing machine. So that is a very simple yes and, right? We've established that, we're folding laundry. I want to add to that, and now we know that we're in a laundry room, right? We're doing laundry in our laundry room. Whether it, at that point, once they start doing communication verbally, they might establish that it's their own house, or they might establish that it's a laundromat, right? But at least they know a generic location and activity, and they probably know that they know one another. Yeah. I think that is pretty simple. So the second one, I'll go through this and then I'll bounce to you, Arthur. Example, the second one is a location, right? So the player 1 steps out and mimes holding on to prison cell bars. And then the second improviser comes up and stands next to him and holds out a mirror to see down the row of cells, right? A very simple, non-verbal space work that just yes and...
That's the wire. Something really quick about that specificity. I think the most important thing that we can remember as improvisers is a lot of the basics are crucial to making these things work and making them believable. And even though we can make an intentional choice to do something silly, or even though sometimes we might not know what's going on, the best thing you can do to give to your partner is your ears and your eyes, and being able to pay attention and know. So for someone to come in and immediately be able to jump on and do that mirror, it means that you had to have been paying attention enough to what they were doing on stage and see that they were looking through those bars. You know, like a lot of times, you know, we're so worried about when we're coming on, we forget to pay attention to what that person who's already on stage was doing, and to see them looking through those bars and go, that's what they're doing, not coming out just ready to do whatever. Can give you the opportunity to support your partner by seeing what they're doing. It's the same thing as listening. You're just doing it with your eyes. What do they call that?
I don't know.
Seeing.
A feeling. A lot of people, and it's basically, it's all nerves for the most part. Sometimes it can be a selfish thing, like someone's like, I'm funny, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to do this one thing. And they have an idea in their mind that they thought of 3 scenes ago, and they're like, I'm going to do it. Or it's just not being invested in your scene partner. Like, that's a huge thing in improv, is always being invested in your scene partner. And they always say that you want to make them look good, right? It's not about you looking good, it's about them looking good. And then your scene partner is going to make you look good, right? And the way we do that is by being present and actually watching their choices, taking our time, not feeling like we have to jump to something funny. We just have to live and create a real space first. Like, that's the biggest thing.
It's trust.
No, it's not trust.
Important.
It's not trust. No. First of all, no, it's not trust. Okay, no, go ahead. It is trust. Continue.
But no, literally, like, I couldn't agree with you more that there are a lot of times where we as improvisers think that the goal is to like rush to the joke, rush to the laugh. Nothing is funnier than a slow build to that laugh. To really, like, even some of the audience will know, like, oh man, I know where they're going with this. But nothing is more tantalizing than pulling that string slowly until that laugh happens. Tom Green, I remember watching him just pull a chair out to sit at a computer desk, adjust his glasses, and just start typing for about the first minute and a half of the scene. And it got laughs. Because he was just committed to what he was doing in that moment. So it's not even just trusting your partner, it's about trusting yourself and not thinking that you've got to like jam the gas pedal to laughter. The laughter, it's a beautiful thing to build to. You can't have ha 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 the whole time.
Laughter is a hell of a drug. Laughter is a hell of a drug. Let me do this thing real quick. But that's 100% true. Like, it's all about trust. You know, I just came up with it now. I think it's all about trust. The third example is environmental condition, right? So player 1 steps out, squinting with his hand in front of his face, and player 2 simply mirrors this behavior. So you can do stuff like that where it's not you have to create a new choice. It's like, oh, it's sunny out, so I have to put on my shades. It doesn't have to be a brand new, interesting choice that yes ands. It can also be mimicking, right? It can just be yes and by being a pea in a pod, right? That's what they call it, peas in a pod. You're like, I'm going to just do what my partner's doing, and we're going to build from here. So there's so many times to just be hesitant and in your head, right? Like I mentioned before, where we're worried about what we're going to say first, but then we're also worried about, oh, how can I be interesting? How can I make a choice that is saying yes to my partner, but how does it have to be different? It doesn't always have to be different. Like, you just have to trust your gut feeling, whatever you're thinking about initially, as long as it services what your partner did and it supports it. And you can support it by just doing exactly what your partner did. So
Jeremy, I support exactly what you're doing.
There we go. See, that's what it takes. Good job. We did it. Yeah. High five. Oh, there we go. All right.
You did it the right way.
Yeah, you did it the right way. I think we're cooking with gas now, as they say. I think that's the show at Groundlings. Anyways, so specificity, and I just put broad topics or statements on this that we can go ahead and talk about, which I think we've probably already touched on a little bit. But this is where we could really...
Let's get into them.
We could really vamp on it, my guy. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about specificity with Spacework, which we all know at this point of the video is creating an object with nothing but the negative space. You manipulate the negative space, right? We know that by now. So what do we mean by specificity with object or space work, right? Believability. I don't think this is necessarily the most important, but it's just what I put first. Because
he's like, these are in no particular order.
These are in no particular order. But I just put believability down because at the end of the day, we know that so what we do know is that we are making stuff up. We're aware of that. Improvisers aware of that. We know it's jokey stuff. Sometimes it can be real. It can be very real. It can be sad. It can be anything. But we know at the end of the day, it's a crazy idea. We're just making stuff up, right? But no matter what, the audience wants to believe in the reality that we're creating. And the way that we do that very simply is by making what we do believable, right? We're not playing at holding a lighter, right? Like whatever. A lot of people, first-time improvisers, will grab something. They'll be like, here we go. And I'm like, what are you holding? And they're like, I'm holding a boombox. I'm like, really? Because there's no space between your fingers, between anything. It looks like you're holding a dandelion or a very fine hair. Like, and that's what comes with believability, is actually implementing the space between everything, right? You always have space between something. So if I'm holding a flashlight, there's a little bit of space. It's not me holding a flashlight or anything like that. But also like the weight of it, right? Which is kind of hard to do. Arthur, what's your way of adding weight to space work? Like I equate something with weight to space work, but what's your way?
Like physical weight?
Yeah, how are you going to make something weigh that is physically not there?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that comes from practice. If you're gonna do that, I think that something that people lean into a lot is the over heavy object. Like, And I think it's about finding specificity in how you would legitimately pick that up. Because even when we pick up heavy things, we always find a balance and a center of gravity. So it's about finding where the heavy object is heavy. Like at what point of you carrying it is it very heavy because you just picked it up? When do you find your balance with it? And when is it making you tired of holding it?
Overuse and stuff like that. Because yeah, if you hold any object, you hold something that is as little as a pin just up in the air, at some point it's going to start to hurt, right?
Your arm's going to get tired. Your hand's going to cramp. Even if you're just writing something as simple as somebody painting or sketching, you could be doing something and at a certain point you put it down and you're just, that is literally the weight of that object on your body. It's obviously not heavy. It's not you carrying, like, you're trying to get your backpack on, but you've got a lot of books in there. The idea too of something being very heavy itself is a bit. If somebody's carrying something very heavy and they get it on and they're fine for a second, they're like, good, I'm good. But they're stuck there. And their partner knows that they're stuck there and they keep them there. Part of the bit is them just like,
oh, I need to go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. Hey, so I'm gonna head out. Oh, yeah. But anyways, what I was saying was,
it's the slow drag, you know, and it's no matter what the object it is, if it does have that kind of weight, it doesn't just have to immediately be heavy, because then you immediately have to put it down.
So
again, it's about letting it live in the scene. So it's like, if you have to give it weight, give it three-dimensional weight of how strong you are, how weak you are, how would you pick it up comfortably without hurting yourself? Because I mean, we don't just go pick up things willy-nilly and throw our back out. We think about it as human beings.
I mean, I've willy-nilly thrown my back out a lot of times.
Okay. Well, if we're not Jeremy, and we're trying to.
I see an object, doesn't matter what it is. I go, I bet I could pick that up. That's always been my MO, man. I'm like, hey, look at that. I bet I could pick that up. But like that is very true. Just three-dimensional way. I love that. But for the actual practice, when it is heavy for you, are there any like actual physical things that you do or you implement for something heavy? Is it like, what is something like visual that you might do?
I lift with my legs.
Okay, gotta write that down. Gotta write that down.
Something that you can do. Obviously, it's a little bit of an oversell, but something like some folks will stretch a little bit before they do it.
Oh, you're doing the pre-game. That's how you end it. You're like, oh, this is gonna be heavy, so let me stretch it out.
Some people do the little finger thing, the little hand stretch. For me, I like to, unless it's intentional for whatever we're doing, I like to ground it in reality. If I know I'm about to pick up something heavy, I try to do it like I would and center my gravity over it. Like I try to think about how I'm.
You're very responsible in real life when you pick up stuff. I just don't care at all.
I have to be, bro. My body is in shambles. So I think that has influenced my space work in a very, very high level. Like I'm thinking in real life, like, man, I don't want to hurt myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. With me, like what I always equate weight to for space work.
Are you talking about like the mental strain of just existence, or?
Yeah. What I usually tell like students, I'm like, there's no weight in imaginary things besides our thoughts, right? But so I usually replace weight with tension. Like I feel like tension is a good replacement for that, and it gives you something to actually like think about, you know what I mean? So I act like when I'm picking up something heavy in a scene, whether it's obnoxiously heavy or anything, I always like kind of tense up the muscles that I'm using. I know what muscles I use to pick up this object or how I use it when I use it. So I tense them up physically, and like you could see like my jacked arms. I'm just kidding. No, but you can see me struggling with the tension of the muscles in my arms and like muscles in my face. There's been times where I'm so committed to like working this very specific object in a scene that I will physically be drained. Like I will be out of breath. I don't know if have you ever had that, Arthur, where you're like, oh my gosh. Because I'm like tensing everything up in my body.
No, because I breathe.
I breathe too. And then after I pass out and I black out on stage,
I'm ready. I'm ready to go again.
That's believability.
I'm like, where are we? What's going on? Let's keep going.
What's the next one? Let me see. We probably covered it a little bit. Value and object worth. We didn't cover this yet.
No, we did not, and it's my favorite part of it. But I think I don't know if it's going to come up next or not. But real quick with believability, I think it's very similar to what we talked about with cigarettes earlier, or even the lighter, or how he was talking about leaving room for the object itself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to practice the specifics of certain items in your rehearsals, or just if you're bored and you're doing something in real life, then you could just start playing in space.
Mm-hmm.
But it helps to know. I mean, hypothetically, obviously, everybody is like gonna, at one point, whether you're Michael Scott or not, gonna pull a gun out during improv. But how, again, it has to do with everything about it. Like, how does a gun actually operate? Is it a revolver? Is it not? Is it a shotgun? Like, the actual difficulty to literally cock a gun is part of a bit. Mm-hmm. Is there a safety? Like, all of these things, if you can be specific with even pulling a magazine out, putting the weapon down, and literally loading bullets into or struggling to put the bullets in a magazine, because it is difficult to match those in.
I wouldn't know. I don't even look at this stuff.
But for me, that is what makes an object believable, even if it's something as simple as you're going to be crocheting. If you YouTube a video of somebody crocheting, you can literally watch what their hands do and how they prep it, how they get ready, and how they tie their knots, how they're holding each of those giant knitting needles or whatever they're called. Mm-hmm. That's that knowledge you want to absorb. You want to have the information to be able to do those things. The more realistic you can do it, I kid you not, you don't even have to say a word. If you walked on stage, sat down, and went through the process of pulling out your crochet set,
and you just crocheted
the specifics, it's hilarious because people are like, "Wait, what?" Like they want you to succeed, so they're watching you like, "What is he? Holy, he's crocheting right now. Yeah. This is amazing."
There's something special of just like people that go to an improv show and know what improv is, not necessarily like in depth, but they understand what it is, right? There's something special of they go there and no matter what they see, unless it's going against all the rules that we learn, and the person's being an a-hole and just really shitting on everyone in their team and not listening and anything like that. But anything that you do on stage is going to be perceived like really, really fantastically to the audience. It could be one word that you say in a very specific way. It could be just crocheting for literally 45 seconds and they swipe the scene and that's the end of the scene. Like, it could be anything, just because the idea of they don't have this, they don't know what's going to happen next. They don't know. So anything that happens,
no expectation of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because it's not written.
I know, like, people literally will say like, okay, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, whoo! like I've died of laughter from just a real believable response to something. You know what I mean? But
I think something that bleeds the two together is, if even going back to the crocheting option, or if you're doing just any sort of needlework and you pull your little box out and you just pop your latch and you open your little tin that's got all your knitting supplies in there and you just start going to work. You can be super specific and it can be beautiful. The other option is you pull your little knitting box and you just...
You see what he did? Do you guys see what he did?
This is now like, your grandma's...
He played the harmonica. I labeled it.
Value in object work. Even with, if you're gonna do a gun, if you're taking a moment to
you keep going back to this gun. I don't know what's going on, my guy, but
if you're looking at your samurai sword and it's a Hattori Hanzo, and you just look at that, but it's literally giving the value to an object of what it means to you, as opposed to these are just knitting needles and I can sit here and crochet and do my thing, or these are my grandmother's. These were left to me. These are generational. These are 3 generations old. And, my grandmother knit with these and her mom knit with these. Like, it gives it a different texture. And even how somebody else comes in the scene and interacts with you and your knitting needles can completely change the dynamic of the scene, because now they have more value. So
I'll give some root words, because I think you've given a lot of definitions, because those are very specific, right? We'll say, so for value, it could be how much the physical dollar sign of the object, right? It can be that. So so value for that, actual money value, or sentimentality, which is what you're talking about. How sentimental is it to this person using it right now, right? Or necessity, out of necessity. So those are 3 different ways to have value for an object, right? Because here's the thing.
Water in a desert, baby.
I've seen people lose rings all the time. And they're like, oh, great, whatever. I've seen someone lose their grandparents' ring and have a meltdown, right? And that's just because it weighs different to us individually, right? It's something that's very special to us. And improv, although it's kind of just like jokey joke, a lot of people do jokey jokes, right? At the core of it, it's acting, and it's just living, right? So we want to play everything as real as possible. And in acting, they talk about that all the time with the value of an object. How are you going to use this? How does it change how you use it based on how much value you deem it, right? How much how often, or how do you interact with a ring that you got that's $1 versus a ring that you got that's $500, right? Do you let people touch it? Do you always polish it? Do you do anything? Do you look at it differently from any angle? Did I give?
Also, it depends on your individual value of it. If your character happens to just turn into in the scene, I mean, if it comes to that they're a very wealthy person, you've seen rich people who are like, don't touch my stuff, this is mine. And you've also seen rich people who are like, I lost a diamond ring yesterday. How much was it worth? 20K.
I would say, because that's,
I've got a drawer full of them.
That's bringing class into it,
well, it's monetary value is what I mean. It's like some people would worry about monetary value, whether they're rich or they're poor, and it literally can directly impede on your character.
Yeah, no,
Also, same thing
100%.
like he was talking about object worth as far as something like water in a desert. That's a very high value.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Mother Teresa with water in the desert, what are you going to do with that? If you're Scrooge McDuck in the desert with a bottle of water, what are you going to do with that? You know what I mean?
If
It could definitely
you're,
influence your
wait, I
character,
want to say
how you
people.
treat that.
If you're an iguana, okay, sorry, I freaked out. I freaked out. Sorry, but also with necessity, something like we're talking about, one of your favorite things to do, right? Cigarettes. A lot of people do this with acting, where it's like acting coaches always be like, you need that. Have you ever had a cigarette and you just need it? Like, they want to dwell on that, like, you need it. It's giving them life, whatever, without being that serious.
No, I'm hearing all of my acting teachers' voices right now.
Oh, have you ever smoked a cigarette? No, it shows because they need it. Like, anyways, they're different levels, right? Some people need the cigarettes out of necessity because they're addicted to it, and some people don't necessarily need the cigarettes. Maybe it's just like a communal thing that they do at a party, right? So I mean, it's all this stuff that whatever choices you decide to make about it, right? But that's something very specific with object work. Adding whatever value that you put to it, just add it there, no matter how little or how grand, right? What's the next one? Character. I think you brought this up, right? Where you're talking about, it depends on how wealthy that person might be, right? If something's something has high value.
And not even just that, but I think the beautiful thing about object work is it can directly correlate to who and how your character operates with other people. If you see somebody handling a particular object a certain way and you come in the scene and they're very protective of that item, or even something like he was talking about, how somebody smokes now gives you a little bit about that character. If they are a friend,
okay, so the difference between someone smoking some Marlboro, I can't even say it, or like someone smoking a long stem cigarette, or someone smoking a pipe, like a little wooden pipe, right? That helps indicate your character. It's all based off Spacework. The same thing I was talking about earlier, where I was like, okay, we start a basic scene, we don't know what the hell we're doing. Everyone just grabs. A lot of times people want to grab a cup. That's pretty much what people want to do. It's like, yeah, I'll grab a cup. Who knows? So maybe there's like 3 friends. One person has a cup. One person has a mug, right? The other person has a mug. A 4th person comes in. We're not talking about that. Another person comes in. Maybe they've established it's a bar. The 4th person comes in. Without knowing, they have just like very small, maybe it's like they're not being specific, but they're like, yeah, cheers. And they drink from it. And everyone notices that that's like a champagne flute. Okay, we're in this dive bar and that guy, our 4th friend's always being fancy with it, with his champagne flute. It might be something harmless that person didn't even think of, but as soon as they label it that.
Did he bring that? Did he bring his own champagne flute? Yeah, it's collapsible.
So now he knows. He's like, and once people bring it up, they're like, dude, why are you getting champagne? This is a dive bar. So now he knows that that's a little bit weird, and it might indicate that he thinks himself a very fancy person, or maybe above people, or maybe he just like can't take all those terrible bitter drinks. Like, who knows? Like, you know what I mean? That's what I remember.
We ain't got no champagne here, but I can give you some whiskey with some soda water.
Like, the craziest thing, one of my friends, real life, IRL.
What's that?
I don't know. Friends or IRL? Both.
IRL.
We go out drinking and stuff like that, and it surprises me every time, but it indicates something about his character that I would have never guessed. But every time we go out, like, I'll get a beer, maybe someone will get like a whiskey on the rock, or like on the rocks or something like that. He constantly, every time, he's like, you got mimosas? And then like at night, at lunch, at breakfast, I'm just like, mimosa? This is I didn't know that you were a mimosa person. Like, and I'm always taken back.
For a while, that was me, but with coffee.
But with coffee?
Like just black coffee. It could be midnight. It could be 1 in the morning, and we're out doing whatever, and maybe at a Denny's after being out, and everybody's just trying to recover. Whatever. I'm like, can I get a cup of coffee? They're like, what?
What?
What are you doing?
No, I do that too. Sometimes I go overboard on coffee and it actually makes me tired. Does that happen to you?
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't know. Basically, to cap this character one, it's just basically you're being specific with how you're interacting with the object, and it might help indicate your actual character, whoever you are trying to portray or be, anything like that. Anything else you want to say on the character portion?
No, I think you
No, dude. No. Next. This one, I put communication because I think I haven't really brought it up, but I'm not only talking about necessarily space work. It's just physicality in scenes, right? Because space work isn't directly an object that you have within your hands, but it's objects in the space, like how you build an actual location by interacting with things in the space. And to bring it back to believability, when you're putting objects in a space like a pool table, a vending machine, a couch, anything like that, where believability comes into play with this is remembering where in the space, right? You've created how big this object is in this location that we're at. And a lot of people forget it and they walk right through it, right? We want to try and remember the location that we're building. So I wanted to bring in physicality within objects and stuff like that, because this is clearly how you can communicate through space work and physicality. What do you got to say about it?
No, I honestly think there's something nifty that kind of happened unintentionally, whether it was intentional or not. A lot of these things, as we go through them, all correlate right back to believability. As you focus on each of these individual things, it goes right back to
Yeah, I feel like, believability was first intentionally. So it's like, it was not just thrown together.
Can we check the VOD? Can we check the VOD?
Check the VOD on that one? Yeah, everything, and that's what specificity is. You know what I mean? That's the only way people are going to believe you is, you're taking your time. And I don't know if we said this, we kind of lightly mentioned it, but it's just about taking your time with it, right? That's the biggest thing.
I have seen an exercise back, I think it was at Second City, but it was one of the earlier stages, because I had already done slews of improv classes, but I wanted to go in from zero, and so I started at the very beginning. And one of the exercises they would make you do for space work is to literally do quick short scenes in silence. And it's not something you want to just do every time. It's not meant to be that, and it also doesn't hit every time. But I got to see some people tell complete stories in a matter of a couple minutes in dead silence. People who were playing like little kids on the playground, who you find out they actually like just the way that they share their sidewalk chalk and start to scoot closer to each other, and suddenly somebody opens their lunch and they share pieces of their sandwich, and they start sharing their gushers or whatever treat they have, and then you see these two little kids. Turns out like they're like this little couple, like they're starting to crush on each other, and it all just developed in silence in the 2 minutes that they were just on the playground. Because they shared some gifts with each other, and it's something that it helps. I mean, that literally is the communication of it. They're talking to each other without saying anything. But again, it all ties into the believability. If you can make people believe what you're doing in that moment, then you can tell that story. No one believes what you're doing, then you're not going to be able to tell that story as clearly.
100%, dude. And to bring back with like nerves and like everything we're talking about, how we're just taking our time with it. Oh yeah, dude. I do that so many times in my classes. Where it's just taking your time, as I was saying. And oh man, what was I about to say, dude? Oh man. I just wanted to just reiterate that don't feel like people are waiting for you to do something. Like they're waiting for you to get on with it. Like, we get it. You're holding that. If you want to take your time and you're on a phone, it's not advised. I promise you to talk to someone on the phone from outside of the scene. Doesn't matter. It happens. But if you're on a phone, but if you want to actually take your time to see the phone for yourself, because once you can see it, then you're like, okay, I can interact with this and do a lot with it, right? So even if that is, you grab it and you're like, wait a minute, okay, oh, there's buttons. They've got keys on it, actually. You can have keys. It's not one of those touch screens. It's actual physical buttons. It's this, it's that. Oh, it's a flip phone? Take your time building it physically, And
the early 2000s called.
and you taking your time to be very, very specific with it, the audience will love. I mean, I love it. I can't say every audience will love. If you perform at a show that's not for improv and it's and it's just, you know, a bunch of awesome performances that are dancing, singing, and then random improv, I don't know if they would necessarily, but you know, they might.
You can make it work.
I think I
try hard enough.
I think I put a slide for some actual numbers in here about communication, because a large portion of communication is actually nonverbal. I think we all know this, and there's been a lot of studies, and some studies that dispute that and negate it and everything like that. But I just went with something specific that I found, and it said that nonverbal communication, we actually communicate 93%. A lot of sources said 93% of our communication is nonverbal. I put a little pie chart together and everything right here. Are you ready for this? So we have 55% body language, how you're actually physically talking. Like, are you slunched over? Are you upset? Are you insecure or anything like that? Are you angry?
Bad posture, dude.
What the hell? The tone or your voice, right? The tone of it, not even the actual words that come out. Just the tone of it can help indicate how you're feeling towards your partner, the person in the space, or anything like that. And 7% actually is carrying that motherfucking thing on you. I don't know if you saw that. No, 7% is.
I don't know if you guys can see, but he used red to signify carrying that.
That MFN thing. But at the 7% is actual spoken words. So, you know, actual words that you use. There are different sites that say that's a bunch of hoo-ha, hooey, but I believe it, man. I think a lot of conversation, and I think of it as like energy. Like, I don't know, they just gave me a weird vibe, right? And it's just things that we're saying without knowing that we're saying, essentially. That's how I mean, like, you could really physically communicate with someone on stage without actually saying a word. And I still think that helps alleviate all of the nerves for us, because it's like, dude, you got this. Like, everything that you're doing is working. You just got to believe that you're doing it.
It really helps you settle in. At least, from my opinion, I think it really helps you settle in to not, you know, feel the need to go right to words. I feel like the moment you go right to words, you're going to go right to that thought process of, I also need to go right for laughs. It's like a chain reaction. And I've definitely seen scenes where, you know, it might be a 2 or 3 minute scene. It's not super long, but it gets no laughs the entire time until the button. And what better way to get a laugh than everybody's just on the edge of their seat, like, what's going to happen, building that anticipation, and then that last bit hits, and that's what gets the laugh. But a lot of times doing space work and object work right out the gate can help keep you settled and let you get grounded and not feel rushed to do other things like talking or going for bits or jokes or, you know, things that are over the top.
I like the way you said that. It seemed like real calm, cool, and collected. You know, it seemed like, I don't know, it was very cool. Whoa, what's going on?
There is a firework party going
on. We're almost at the end. We're almost at the end, so it shouldn't impede too much. I think so. This next 2 slides are going to be exercises that I wanted to go ahead and give whoever is watching this to take home with them, take to their group with them, and stuff like that. And I think the first exercise is the one you told me, but I know that I put some of my own words in there. Are you watching the slideshow? Or are you watching the stream?
I can do both.
Watch the slideshow, because I'll have you talk about it so you can elaborate, right? So this exercise is a group exercise, and everything else I'm going to go ahead and let you read, okay?
Funny story. Am I reading everything?
Yeah.
Value, specificity.
Okay, you don't have to read it like that. That's really... All right, so these are the breakdowns.
Okay, so this is the game here.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you want me to kind of explain the game with these?
Yeah, here, I'll give you all of these so you can just read it out.
Yeah, no, I got you. Oh, I was going to try to do it.
No, it's too late now.
That pace. It's pretty simple, but I feel like it's invaluable because a lot of times when we get our get, you don't know what the audience is going to give you. Sometimes they give you something that might not be appetizing. And what you can do is when you take that object, giving it specific value and really working with that object can change how it's perceived, and you can then take control of the scene. So what you would do in this case is obviously, as the bullet point states, is standing in a circle, and that circle, everybody shouts out some suggestions, and we select one of an individual object. Then individually, a person is going to hold that object. We'll start with person 1 of 5 people, and person 1 is going to hold that object using Spacework. And what does it say? Not
only holding it, but interacting
holding it. But interacting with it. So you definitely want that person to play with the object a little bit, give it some life. Then the person is going to say, oh, this, whatever the object is. Funny story about this. What's important is it doesn't mean, ha 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 ha, funny. It's a figure of speech. People.
I think it's just like a colloquial phrase.
Funny story right? About this.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are like, hey, what's that? Like, you ever been? This is what I added, obviously. It's not what this exercise is, but this is what I added. That's what, whatever. So it's like, oh, hey, can I use this book real quick? Oh, that book? Oh, funny story about that. And they don't even say anything funny. They're just like, yeah, I got it back in. Like,
yeah, figure of speech. Yeah. And I love that about it, but it's just for the sake of if somebody thought it needed to be funny.
It doesn't have to be funny. Yeah. It doesn't have to be funny.
Funny story about this book, and then you give that book life with what that book means to you. And the important thing about that is maybe you can't read. You know, maybe it was a gift, but you've never been able to read this book. Like, how tragic is that? Maybe it's a book that, you know, your father gave you. He used to beat you. Now you hate this book. You don't ever want to open that.
We're
book.
Going hard in the paint with all.
I know, but the reality is, you giving these objects that much depth not only makes your character that real, but it also gives your partners something to go off of. Mm-hmm. Like, you now are giving the gift of a 3-dimensional character and a 3-dimensional gift at the same time, and nothing can be more of a gift than that. Then, as you play with that item, you're going to pass that object to the next person. So person 1 is going to give it to person 2, and then they get to have their own perspective on that same object. And then they're going to tell you their funny story about this. This is my favorite book.
Yeah, and I think
every night. I've read it 377 times, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, I only say it because I didn't write it in here. It's good to know that, like, it's kind of a swiping of everything, right? Each time they get that object, it's not the same object. It's not like, funny story about this book. Well, my friend's dad gave it to him. It doesn't keep adding. It's its own. It's a blank object every time you get it. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Oh, to me?
Yeah. Am I right or am I wrong? Because this is you. This is actually.
I was doing it with the intent of keeping the same object, but
no, the same object. But I'm saying each person. It's not like we said.
Yeah, it's not the same.
The first person said, "Oh, this is a book my father gave me," and the next person's like, "This is a book my friend's father gave him, but they didn't like it because it doesn't keep adding." And so they have to keep saying it.
Certainly hope not.
So it's just good to note that it's a brand new book or brand new whatever the object is every time, and it's yours.
Yeah. And you give your specific details, how it affects you, how you use it, and even just your point of view of it. I mean, you just might hate paper. God, I hate paper. Yeah, it's a book. Yeah, it's a book. I also got matches too.
I have an exercise too that's I showed you it before. It's called Dish That Dirt. But like, and I'm only saying this because it's like, not everything has to have like a very heated background. It doesn't have to be negative. It could be just like I got it from the whatever. But Dish That Dirt always implies something very negative. It's like, oh my gosh, you got to know what I heard today because this person is this and this. I'm like, hey guys, no, I'm just saying.
Spill the tea, baby.
Yeah, I'm just like, relay a conversation. It doesn't have to be negative. They're like, what? But yeah, so this is a good group game right here that helps add.
I think it's a good warm-up exercise because this not only reminds you right before a show, oh yeah, spacework, object work, but it also helps remind you of point of view, which is extremely important. And so something like this to implement into your warm-up games is priceless.
And then I wanted to go ahead and give an individual exercise. So this is solo because, some people that might be watching the stream or watching the VOD or anything like that might not have a group, and they might want to be practicing more individually before they go out there and everything like that. So this one I call Count Your Steps. I know it's not necessarily what it's called, but sometimes we forget the name and we make our own. It's very, very basic. So it's basically like a muscle memory so that you can understand the three-dimensional weight of an object, an actual physical object, right? So the first thing is you want to get a real object. We're not doing space work at this point. We're just getting a real actual object, right? And it could be a water bottle, it could be laundry, piece of clothing, or it could be a keyboard, anything like that. And you're going to interact with the object, the physical object, okay, as you would normally. So if it's a water bottle, you're going to open the bottle. Laundry, you might fold the article of clothing, or keyboard, you might type, right? You're going to count out each step as you're interacting physically with that object until the end of the action, right? So if I choose opening a water bottle, I'm going to grab an actual water bottle. I'm going to count how many steps it takes me to actually open it up, right? And I'm going to bullet point each one. So I hold the water. If I had an actual water bottle, but for the sake of brevity, whatever, holding this big water bottle right here, right? And this one's very simple to go ahead and open it, but it's just, actually sometimes it's not. But I have it, right? I pick it up, so maybe that's 1, and I have 2, I press 3, 4, 5, right? So I want to have the same amount of space and everything like that, so I counted out 5 steps. Has a little bit of weight to it. So now I have it without the actual physical bottle, but it's still, I have to see the three-dimensional of it, the three-dimensional value or weight of it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I sip it, right? But I still know exactly how big this water bottle is. Oh, it worked. Yeah, it worked.
Whoa!
Whoa!
No way! No way!
It works better because there's more steps with an actual water bottle. Because you'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and how many steps it takes to actually open it. So and then you take away the physical object and just recreate all the numbers that you did without it, right? So that one's a very simple one that you can do with a lot of different objects in your room or anything like that, just to get that under your belt, how you actually interact with it and the actual weight of the object. And yeah, what do you think about this, Arthur?
I love it, and I think it's one of those things that is a very important fundamental. And I think that there's this misconception that the fundamentals are somehow supposed to be let go at a certain point. No improv works without these fundamentals. I think they couldn't be more important. And an exercise like this, especially on your own, is just it's great to do just with, right? I have mail right here. For me to just practice what it's like opening the letter is then something that I can apply when I'm seeing you're opening your college acceptance letter. It's about being able to do those little things so specific.
Mm-hmm.
And if those fundamentals are in your bones, then you can start kind of playing around with breaking the rules or doing other things and having fun with some wackiness. But the reality is you're never letting go of that fundamental. And something like Spacework is extremely fundamental to not only finding funny, but just finding reality in your scene. And I would rather watch a scene that's extremely specific with no laughs than to see somebody just trying to go for a ha-ha bit. And it's the specificity you put into these little things that helps. And this is the kind of practice that can really give you some good core work. You gotta get your core strong.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we've done, or I've done too, this is the third class of actual just basics and stuff like that. We talked about yes and, who, what, where. No, yeah, yes and who, what, where I think was the first episode. And then I did an episode where it was just about warm-ups to just help you mentally, physically, and as a group be ready to perform. And now this one is with spacework and physicality, essentially. So I think like we're starting to get a more rounded idea of what improv might be and how you can actually implement it a little bit with a group, outside of group, and everything like that. But this is, oh, look, I didn't do any actions. I thought this was like animated right here.
That's me.
And we can still talk a little bit, little outros and stuff like that. But obviously, this is improv basics, right? And this is my lovely guest right over here, Arthur. Thank you so much for coming in here and sharing the stage with me.
Thanks for having me.
His Instagram is right there up top, but he also has a meme Instagram if you want to go ahead and give that a follow at any point in your life and get some laughs in your life. And
it's got significantly more value than my regular Instagram does.
Well, it's whatever they place the value of it, right? That's what we were talking about today. So it could mean nothing to me, and it does mean nothing to me. But to you guys, it might mean the world. No, and we're also in an improv group, Imaginary Circumstances. We also have our own improv Twitch channel, all stuff like that, where we might do a couple of short form, long form, anything like that. If you ever want to catch us on there, go ahead and follow that. But is there anything that you want to say as a cap for yourself or for the day or for anything, Arthur? Any words of wisdom?
To be here, baby. I am just happy to be here. I know I said it a lot, but I think it's just invaluable to not only trust your partners, but trust yourself. Take your time on stage. Don't feel rushed. Don't go for the ha-ha. Go for your reality. Build your location. Build your character. Take your time and just have fun doing that. I think when we talk about something like this being make-believe, when you think about being a child and you make-believe you're in a castle somewhere, how specific a child really is about it. Like, a parent will come to play and like, the kid's like, no, you're stepping on my cherry blossoms. And you don't realize, like, oh shoot, we start to lose these things as we get a little bit older. But that specificity is everything, and it's such a valuable tool to have in improv. And watch each other. Like, even if you come out on stage, I mean, man, take a second to watch your partner doing whatever they're doing, and whether it's you, the person, just in awe of what they're doing, or you, the character, trying to figure out, like, what the hell are they doing? Those moments can really create a scene. They can create character dynamic. They can create relationship dynamic. It ends up being a bit that you just never know what's going on. Like, it can be the most perfect object work ever, and they're just like, what? But those things, those gifts, come from just living in the reality, trusting yourself, trusting your partner, and building your fundamentals.
There you go. I mean, I asked Arthur if he had anything to say. He said no, and then said everything. So I do that all the time, dude. Like,
I'm a damn liar.
All the time. Where even like I do improv when I teach in person, and I get a basics like improv 1. Third week, I'm like, let's do long form. I've already taught you guys everything. and
I think
like,
you're ready.
I thought it was good because I'm like, we're killing it. You guys are understanding it. You're applying it. Let's go. And I'm like, I'm so hyped. And then I told my teacher,
right out the window.
My teacher friends, I'm like, yeah, I'm in improv 1 right now. I'm teaching them. We're gonna do like a montage. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do that. And they're like, oh, well, what am I gonna do when they get to my class and they've already done all this stuff? And I'm like, I didn't think about that, my guy. I'm so sorry. Oopsie daisy. But yes.
Can I throw a story real quick?
You want to throw a story?
It's a quick one.
All right,
Yeah,
we're throwing a story.
It's a really short one. I was at Second City, and I remember we were in one of those like early stage classes, and a lot of people would kind of like have this kind of mentality of like, if they didn't really know how someone was on stage, or they thought they were a little wily, they would kind of veer away from going up with them.
Oh yeah.
I encourage you to go up with those people, because no matter what happens, especially if you're in a practicing environment, it's a safe space. They will give you gifts that you could possibly imagine. I remember there was a gentleman that was like in his late 60s, early 70s, that was taking our class, and no one really knew what to expect going up with him, so they would kind of not go up with him a lot. And I ended up on stage with him, and I forget. I think maybe it was like birds flying through the air. So there was something going on in the air that was like not that drastic and not that crazy. And I kid you not, this guy like just loaded up a 50 caliber and just started firing into the air. And I don't usually break when I'm on stage, but that man broke me, and we had some fun with that. But
that man broke
find
me.
the wild ones, and just have some fun.
But that is definitely a common thing where it's like there's someone that is not understanding what we're doing necessarily, or they're just like slightly behind, or making weird choices, or anything. It could be anything. People start getting
but
like,
if you accept that, oh man.
yeah, no matter what, like everyone, you're gonna get better just by repetition and continuing that, trusting each other, no matter, even if you know they're like, oh, I don't know, this person does some weird stuff, just trust that it's gonna work out, right? Like everyone, I don't know, I always feel like we're always on the same page. We're all like on the same level.
Crushed that scene, by the way. That
We
50
killed
cal was
so
the
many.
star of
You
it.
still want me to kill them
Crushed.
birds, though, right? Parks and Rec.
I feel like
Right,
we were being
right.
attacked
How do you
by
want me?
whatever it was, and it was something that was just so absurd that you would never need a 50 cal for. But the fact that like everything about him had been very quiet and polite, even his demeanor. He was a very like gentle, soft-spoken old man,
Mhm.
and suddenly he's just out there like, and I was just like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. I had so much fun
All,
with that.
all I can think about is Parks and Rec now with that scene. So how you want me to do it? You want me to drown them one by one? You want me to?
Dude,
You're like,
it was
oh,
that. It
and
was
we
that with
just
the
so we
50
know,
cal.
just so we know, this is just practice. It's just a drill. It's not real. Right. But I'm still gonna kill him, right? You still want me to kill him, right? Anyways, I will go ahead and let Arthur get on with his night, and thank you for all the hundreds of thousands, even we almost hit 1 million views during this stream, and we appreciate you guys. We love you so much. I'll go ahead and do my in command, all that stuff.
Subscribe.
I have a YouTube where I'll be putting this video. Oh, I didn't even exclamation point. I have a YouTube where I will be putting the videos for this permanently if you want to go ahead and check that out. And for people that are watching this for the first time on YouTube, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sticking around, hanging out with us, and learning a little bit about spacework, specificity with your spacework, and object work, all that stuff, right? You have a beautiful day. Stay amazing, stay beautiful, stay weird, and we will see you, sometime, right? We'll see you sometime. Bye.
Probably.